Hi, I'm Calum,
And I'm Autumn,
and we are Wicked Grace,
where we talk about everything wicked.
and everything full of grace. And today we are going to talk about the topic of hexes, jinxes, and curses, what defines them, and some examples thereof, and maybe some tricks on how to create your own. So, how would you define a curse?
Well, a curse to me is probably more in depth and more, I don't want to say dangerous, but more lethal than, say, a hex or a jinx. A curse is like somebody that has really done a lot of wrong to not just me but other people. They've been given numerous chances, and I always give out a warning if I'm planning on doing something, like to give them, you know, like fair warning, like, hey, this is there are consequences. This is going to happen. So to me, that could include the death of someone, bodily harm, financial loss. Whereas, like we were talking the other day, a hex or a jinx is not as lethal. It's more of like an inconvenience for the person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. See, how I would define it is that each of them is a different level of inconvenience. So, like, if you were to compare it to, like, spanking a child for doing something wrong, that'd be, like, the level of a jinx.
Right.
Whereas you yell at an adult for doing something wrong, that'd be, like, a hex. But, like, actually punching the crap out of them and not stopping until your anger is gone.
Right.
That would be the level of curse for me.
Yes, absolutely.
So, like, same with the jinx, where, like, a jinx isn't meant to do any actual harm, just to completely inconvenience them in the most minor, annoying way possible, which is even better when you know the person, because you know what their pet peeves are and what sets them off.
And what their weaknesses are.
Oh, exactly.
And to use that weakness against them. And it sounds really horrible, but, it's not just something that's done willy-nilly. It's not just something that's just done on the fly. For me, for a curse, and I know that's for you as well, it's more of like, okay, this person has gotten plenty of chances to change direction, and they're just not doing it. So, you kind of like have to help karma along a little bit and like, oh, no. But, like you said, knowing the person, you know what their weaknesses are, and you know exactly where to strike. And it just sounds kind of hateful and horrible. But that person is a really bad person if they're going to get cursed in my book. So,
exactly.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. So.
Yeah. And see, for like a hex, I would kind of also define that as something that is possibly intended to hurt them. Like, they wreck their car, but like they don't end up in a hospital, but their car is totaled, or maybe their house catches on fire when they leave for work. Or, like, I remember seeing on TikTok, there was this one girl who, her car, out of this entire parking garage in Dallas, had a water line burst above her car and solidify her car in ice.
Right.
And everyone's like, honey, you've been hexed.
Right.
Like,
oh,
that's,
absolutely.
It doesn't make sense why only that water line busted. Because if there was actual, if it was more of an actual problem, not like a hex, but like a over the time decay kind of problem, then it should have happened to other lines. Even if it didn't explode in that intensity, the water freezing itself would have bust the pipes in other places if that was the case.
Right.
So it really doesn't make sense why that happened to her. Besides, she pissed someone off.
Oh, absolutely. She pissed somebody off.
And then, in terms of a curse, that's something that I believe should only be reserved for the truly most vile misdeeds that someone could possibly do. Like, let's say someone kidnapped your child and you didn't get to see them for 10 years because they were a part of one of those things.
Right.
Then you finally get them back and you find out who it was and the person only gets a slap on their wrist because they don't really have evidence, you'd resort to a curse to make sure that them and everyone attached to them suffers horribly.
Exactly.
And that suffering never ends and they don't get off scot-free with death.
I agree.
Because death is, no.
Too easy.
Too easy.
You want them to suffer.
Yes. You want them to feel the agony that they've inflicted.
Right.
And to go along with that, to kind of explain more on what, let's kind of like give some spell examples on what we would kind of classify in each stage. So let's start off with Jinx, since that's the more minor one. For that, my favorite Jinxes, I actually found on TikTok, which really got me into it even more. But it's like, some of my favorite ones that I came up with are, I hope tomorrow morning when you're running late for work, or better yet, it'd be, I hope when you wake up for work tomorrow that you are running late for work, and when you go to put your car in the ignition, your key snaps off. Because that's just, no one got hurt.
Right.
But your entire day is ruined, and that was a series of inconveniences that happened that you won't forget for a long time. And if you keep up those inconveniences and keep layering them and having them happen back to back to back to back, it's a lot of minor things. No one's really getting hurt except for that person's probably pocket. But another one would be like, I hope every time you walk around your house barefoot, you stub your pinky toe in the corner of a piece of furniture. Or I hope every time you feel like not cooking, that you have no food to cook in your house.
Right.
Or no, I hope every time you are in the mood to cook that you have no food in your house.
Yeah.
That would be better. Or I hope that every time you plan to go out with the girls or with the guys, you're always stuck babysitting your nephew. No one gets hurt.
Right, and it's just an inconvenience for them.
Exactly.
It's annoying. It's enough just to kind of like get under the skin a little bit and just irritate.
Yes.
And it's nice.
Now, do you have examples, or would you like to move on and take care of the next part?
My examples would probably be like in the movie Practical Magic, where the one little girl goes, I hope you get chicken pox. And then the next time you see the little boy, he's got chicken pox.
Yep.
Something like that. Or, you know, like, I hope your wife gives you shit every day, you know, for just stupid stuff, you know.
Like that would be more of a jinx, though. Because it's not really that strong, because if you're just making someone kind of like more angry towards a person, I would still kind of... Oh yeah, we're talking about jinxes anyway.
Yeah.
Duh. Sorry.
Yeah.
I skipped ahead.
No, it's fine.
But yeah, stuff like that would totally be, yeah. Or another one that, I would say it's kind of in the gray area between a jinx and a hex, would be, I hope every time you're home, you see shadow people out of the corner of your eye.
Ooh, that's unnerving.
It's unnerving.
For me, it's unnerving.
Yes. But the reason why I say it's kind of more borderline between a jinx and a curse is, at first thought, you wouldn't think that the shadow people are going to do any harm because all they ever do is watch.
Yeah.
But I have found out from past experiences that when there is a accumulation of shadow people, they kind of set a beacon for the darker, scary things that can actually hurt you. So essentially, you could be making their home a beacon for pain and misery.
Oh, that would probably go into curse, or in between curse and hex.
There's actually, another reason why I'm considering this only hex level is because there are curse level versions of what I was just talking about. That's a lot stronger and scarier, which is one of the reasons why I love Hecate, but that will be a secret for you to find out on your own, dear listeners. See, with a hex, like I mentioned earlier, a hex would be where let's say I see the same car every day I'm driving to work cut me off, disobey traffic laws and rules, and just generally being a very dangerous driver and putting other people's lives at risk. See, in my car, I'm hoping that they wreck, so that way they are off the road. It might not hurt them, but it's also their own actions that's going to cause the problem.
Right.
So all I try to do is I focus on their bad driving, and I try to make them exaggerate it or maybe get cockier with their driving to where they make a mistake and they only hurt themselves.
Right. Agreed.
So that way they're taken off the road. They will probably not be allowed to drive for a very long time. And in order to do so, and to even get your license back, I believe you still have to retake your driving test anyway to get your license. I think. Don't quote me on that. I don't actually know how the world works.
Right.
But yeah, so like I do that stuff to people all the time that just swerve through 3 lanes to get cut in front of you where there's only half a car space in front of you. You have to slam on your brakes, and everyone behind you also had to do the same because they were not thinking ahead.
Right. That's why we have good brakes down here.
And that's why we have to replace our brakes so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
let's give another example of a hex, because that was just one specific scenario.
I really don't know any,
I
because to be honest, I usually will do a jinx, just something to irritate somebody, or I'll do a curse, because if it gets to that point where I have to do a curse, it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really bad. So yeah, I don't really do too many hexes too often.
I actually just thought of a few that you probably have actually done that you didn't think of.
Okay.
So, some that I would consider would be kind of borderline harmful, but not entirely. Just more like harm to the ego, seriously, for men.
Right.
So let's say you catch your boyfriend cheating on you, and he just plays it off like nothing happened.
Right.
You could put a hex on him to where every time he sleeps with someone other than you, he gets gonorrhea. Bad. To the point where medical intervention is needed beyond medication.
As long as he's responsible enough to get the treatment and not spreading it to everybody else.
If he's not responsible enough to wear a condom while having sex with strangers,
then I wouldn't even.
Exactly.
I shouldn't be dealing with it.
Yeah, because how would you know he's even getting tested? Why would he care?
This is true.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
Yes.
Another thing you could do is you could hex/curse his penis to never get hard again if he were to cheat on you again.
I have done shit like that. I'm sorry, I have. So yeah, you're right. I have.
Yeah. Or.
And I think some of it's probably worked a little too well.
Oh yeah, the impotent
spells. A little
spells.
too well. Like.
The impotent spells though are very easy to do because they are so successful. They have like a 90% success rate.
You are right.
Even for a novice, it's stupid easy to make happen.
Oh yes, just go to your local witchy shop, get a penis candle.
Or just get a candle.
Or just a candle.
Because I'm sure
that
plenty of you ladies have his dick pic lying around somewhere that he sent you unsolicited.
Right.
Wrap it around the candle and stick some fucking needles in it and let that shit burn.
My favorite, along that lines, one that I did do, had to do with a penis candle. And then I put the tarot card underneath it.
Nice.
I had it in a holder or whatever, but I had the tower candle under it.
Oh my gosh.
And lit it. And I made sure I inscribed it correctly, like put the person's initials and birth date.
I might classify that as a curse.
You probably could. I don't think we've actually still recovered from that, and I'm just letting it, because they're a really horrible person, to be honest with you.
Dude. I can't believe they pissed you off enough to use the tower card. But also, light bulb, great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, I like using the tarot cards in some of my spell work, and I don't think I've ever talked to you about that.
Yeah.
I have?
No, you haven't.
Oh, okay.
And that's why I'm surprised. My mind's blown because the tower card has always been such a source of misfortune for so many people.
Oh yeah, if I am so pissed off at that person and I have given them multiple warnings, like flat out, you're fucking with me, you're fucking with other people, I'm going to do something. You have been warned. I'm not playing around no more, and you're gonna regret it. And they keep it up, and it's like, okay, well, I'm getting out the big guns. Tower card, here we come.
Wow.
I've also done one where I had like, and I know I've probably talked to you about the whole water, like the messages in water, that book. Remember, by that one Japanese doctor, I think it is. But anyway, it's a short little book. I need to still finish reading it, but in it, when you
that's nice.
like what I would do is take it's simple, take a glass of water and talk into it what you want. Set it on your altar. Either put the person's picture underneath, or if you're pissed off, the tower card or another kind of card, so that the light hits down to that card or whatever. And then I would take that water and go throw it on that person's property.
Damn. I'm impressed. You went the long mile. Wow.
And it didn't really cost me anything because, it's just water you get out of the sink and a glass.
I mean, honestly, you use the water that's in tap here in the United States. That's just automatically curse water. The shit that's in that water is already toxic.
Right,
so.
I agree.
Shit.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed.
You like that?
Yeah, that is
And it's just a simple little spell,
Yeah.
But it goes for the same thing, too. Like, I mean, this is off the whole subject of curses, but, like, if you're wanting somebody to notice you or bring, like, hey, love me. I mean, not really in the sense of a love curse, but kind of like, something good. I mean, you could take the lover's card or, the sun card and do the same thing and then just, like, indiscreetly throw it on. But then that goes, again, to what we were talking about another time, consent.
Oh, yeah. Magical consent, which we'll talk about in another episode because that is a whole slew of shit that we gotta talk about.
Yes, absolutely. But anyway, back to curses. But those are my simple little go-to curses. Like if I really, 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 pissed off. And I have done my whole version of a coffin spell too.
Nice. I have my own rusted coffin nails for just that moment, because you never know. I've even thought about making my own war water with those nails, but I'm like, I'm debating, because if I use those nails for war water, I'm going to want to leave them in so that way it just keeps getting extra rusted.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we could talk about that another time, too, because I think that's going to have its whole video.
Right.
So, let's talk about curses now. My absolute favorite, the second most fun you can have. Jinxing is honestly my favorite because you can do a whole slew of things. Just like I know there's TikTok videos where they're like, if you're a burglar, but you could only steal one thing that is going to be like a minor inconvenience for the person you're stealing from, or like stealing from yourself, if a thief was going to break into your house and steal something that is unnoticeable, but when discovered will be just such a life-ruining moment. And I've seen so many people breaking into their own house and finding a very obscure book that looks like it's well read, and like they might come back every now and again to reread it, and they ripped out the last chapter.
That's as a book lover, that would just totally tear me apart.
I know. I would never recover. I would give that book up permanently.
Right. I would be like, no.
Yeah. And then I'd be worried about all the other books being the same, and I'd just give up reading.
Your anxiety would kick in, and you go check all your other books.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, curses. Oh, those are fun. So those curses are intended to actually create direct harm, purposely made to hurt someone in some way that is most likely going to be physical, and that could even prove to be fatal. So one of my favorite examples of curses, which is something I do to people that are so toxic that creating something to inconvenience them, I know wouldn't be enough and wouldn't work because their life is inconvenient already to them. So what I like to do is I imagine all of their vileness, all their toxicity, everything about them that just makes them a generally awful, disgusting, hateful person that and every aspect of them that hurts other people. I imagine just a really thick, sticky bubble surrounding that person's aura and trapping it in. And basically, all I do is I block their negative shit from attacking other people. So then they start drowning in their own toxicity, and eventually they start choking on their own venom that they're trying to spew. And while they keep being a nasty, rotten person, they slowly fuel that curse to ruin their lives more, bring it down a darker path, bring their lives into darkness and away from light, push everyone away, and possibly even I've seen some really good curse work on people where they go septic entirely. Like their blood, their liver and kidneys stop filtering the poison toxicity out of their body, and it actually makes their blood like a septic tank, just full of filth and rot. And it's just because the hex just reflected their negativity back towards the one trying to sling it out, and a lot of times it ends them unless they make a change. If they don't make a change or notice there's a problem or start apologizing, it will not get better. And it's not really undoable because at that point it gets attached to that person's soul because that person was a willing participant in hurting other people. And when they were denied that aspect, they were at that point willing to hurt themselves because they refused to change.
Right.
But that's also something that I add as like a get out of jail free card kind of thing, or like a stipulation clause where I do like a backdoor thing to where if the person actually does change or become a better person or starts to notice that they're hurting other people, I kind of program my curses to stop stop hurting them and just put a pause on their poison that they've been spewing and wait and watch and see if they actually actively make a change. Right. Because if they do continue to make a change, then that curse will go dormant and they'll stop being negatively affected of it. Mm. But it doesn't make it go away. I never allow it to go away. And if they're honestly a vile enough person, I will put it on the entire family in hopes that the family will notice that that person is being toxic and poisonous, and to confront them, help them change, or leave them. And either way, as long as they are out of the toxic person's life, or helping them change their life to be better, then those are moments where the curse will affect those around them that they hold close to them. Not like just a random passerby. They're not going to get affected. It's just going to be mainly their family. Maybe if their parents were the ones that raised that person to be evil and toxic, then it would affect them. But at that point, they also might end up already being on death's door because their poison was probably starting to affect themselves. They're probably starting to swallow their own venom.
Yeah.
So, which is why I don't like doing it, because at a certain point, like, you could be the cause of someone's life to end. And that's something that will weigh heavily on your conscience.
It's serious, yeah. And you have to be able to accept the consequences. Mm-hmm. Because, like we were talking the other day, I believe, and just like the little disclaimer out there, these are just our opinions.
Our gnosis, if you will.
Our personal gnosis, what we feel is right for us, for our paths and whatnot. And in no way, shape, or form are we saying, go out there and just curse everybody. We're saying, this is how we lead our lives, so that it kind of puts it out there so that people can learn from it.
Mm-hmm. And also to add on that, a lot of times when I jinx someone, I'm not actually actively trying to throw a jinx in their direction. A lot of times I'm just saying it to be able to play a scenario in my mind as a way of therapy, to feel like I'm getting retribution without actually seeking retribution, so that way I can move on from the situation.
Right.
Although sometimes I will say, if you put enough emotion behind it, it doesn't matter if you attempt to make a spell or not. The universe will hear that emotion and will cry out in pain and seek justice for itself.
Right.
So, remember, kids, if you put emotion behind it, it's likely the universe is going to hear you and be like, yeah, okay, I'll actually do this for you instead.
Right. Yeah.
Whether you ask or not.
And the whole thing with cursing, like if it gets to that point where I feel like I need to do that, I will actually do some type of divination to kind of like, okay, am I really justified or am I just pissed off?
Yeah.
You know, like, doesn't really warrant it. You know, I'm just aggravated at this person at the time or whatever. But like if I get the okay, then I'm like, okay, well, you know. And I always look at collateral damage. Like, how can I do this without hurting anyone around them? Like if they have kids or if they're married or, you know, their parents or whatever. Like, I look at like, okay, they're not the one being assholes. This person is. I want to make sure that it's specifically targeted to that person, and only that person is going to be affected. So I'm very specific when I do my workings or my curses.
Yes.
And like I said, I don't do them all the time. I do them once in a great while or blue moon, because I you know, I'm a pretty laid back person for the most part. But if it gets to that point where I'm like, dude, you had your chances.
You know, speaking of that, I just realized there's something within the Jinx, Hex, and Curse realm that's not really labeled, so I'm just going to throw a label on it to help explain it. But like, where you're doing something to cause something, but not necessarily for a specific outcome. So I'm going to call those causalities, where you're just doing something to cause something to happen or come to light. Like with Vanilla Bean, where we were talking about trying to hex or jinx or curse him, but then we were like, well, he has a wife and kids that are honestly most likely completely innocent in this whole situation,
right.
And it's supposed to be Vanilla Bean who takes a fall, but if he does take a fall, they could all end up hurt in the process, because I'm pretty sure he's probably the breadwinner and one paying the bills.
Oh, yeah.
So what we had actually worked out was to create a causality where we cause his cheating and indiscretions to come to light, and for it to be so blatantly obvious and so packed full of evidence that she could use that as evidence to divorce him, get what she and the kids need to survive without him,
Right.
and him be kicked out of their lives forever, so that way we help improve their lives but make his life worse. But that's just the hope that it happens. So where we'd be stopping is after the evidence comes to light. That's when our hands are done. We're done participating in it because we did what we sought, and what happens after is what they choose to actually have happen.
Right.
So
Kinda
if
like
they want to make it up to each other or like fix something, they have the option.
Right.
Or if they want to just cut it off and end it, they have that option too.
Kind of like what you were saying previously the other day or whatever about the domino, just like, you know, knocking the first domino down and letting it just go.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that with how I personally do my own spell work, because the way I do my spell work is I don't make a big spell to make a big thing happen. I try to follow the butterfly effect rule, to where you make a small ripple that eventually becomes a tidal wave, but you have to figure out where the origin point will be for you to do a small thing to cause, and if you need to help push the dominoes in the right way as they're falling, you can just pay attention to how the spell is working in the world around you, and then you can influence another domino to fall along with that to just carry extra momentum and amplify what you already did.
Right.
Or you can do a series of small things to pyramid into the only singular outcome where you're just knocking down all the possible dominoes to make that singular outcome happen.
Right.
Instead of just trying to force the universe to figure out a way to make it happen for you,
Right.
you do the planning beforehand. Which we'll do that in another episode. Because I can go on and on about the imagery that I use and how my mind thinks when I do these workings, and yeah. So anyway, just kind of wrap it all up. A jinx is something meant to cause consistent inconveniences.
Mm-hmm.
That, let's say you have a Karen in your life, you don't want them to really get hurt, but you want them to shut up. So you can easily put a jinx on her where you are the centerfold, to where anytime she does something that slights you, she gets a jinx enacted upon her by her own free will. Because she can learn, and you can tell her that, hey, you need to knock that shit off or else.
Right.
And she's like, or else what? You ain't gonna do shit, blah, 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 blah. I'm gonna call the cops. You can make a jinx to where every time she tries to call someone or call for a manager or something, where they're either never there, on lunch, had a... I almost said have a family emergency, but then that actually probably fall into more of a hex realm, and that's causing harm to others, so it could also... that one's a little too tall of an order for a jinx. What else? Let's say anytime she tries to call someone for help because when she's on the wrong and she wants someone to back her up and she has to call them to get them to come, I hope that her phone battery dies.
Yeah.
That's an easy jinx, and it saves your ass, and then they get embarrassed because they have no backup.
Right.
And for a curse,
Hex.
a hex. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
A hex is something that is intended to cause more mild inconveniences to slight harm, usually preferably not physical harm, but like property damage, such as a person's house catching on fire when they leave for work and they don't find out about it until they get home from work, and they have no backup plan for that eventuality because it was so sudden. Or let's say they crash their car a little bit, or like they T-bone another car or ram into another car. Let's say they forgot to pay their car insurance that month and they no longer have insurance to cover for that car accident. That's going to cause them serious financial harm.
They're royally screwed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then a curse would be where harm is completely intended. You're intending to hurt them in a way that they have hurt you or have hurt others. Like, let's say a guy continuously mansplains or gaslights you or makes you feel like you were the one that was in the wrong, that actually did everything wrong, when in reality they were the ones that were in the wrong the entire time, and they do it to everyone.
Right.
And let's say you have your little college rapists, the ones that get away scot-free because the college just doesn't want to deal with it because it would look bad for publicity.
Right.
You can hex the motherfuckers. You can also hex and curse the school and the school board. And you can also hex them to where every time something like this happens, students start protesting it and the media comes in and hears about it. Mm-hmm. That is a solid curse that will help a lot of people that probably need it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's see. Do we have any more notes? Okay. I think that's pretty much about it. I think, what should our next episode be about? We should probably...
maybe kind of go over, like, okay, what happens if you think you have been jinxed, hexed, or cursed.
Gotcha.
And it was done, and it was, like, they were doing it like it wasn't your fault. You know what I mean? Like, how do you know you've been one of these things? Tips on how to get rid of it, and, you know, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then on top of that, next episode too, I want to talk about something that I have personally noticed and dealt with from actively cursing or hexing people that have really truly deserved it, but the negative effects it can actually have on your soul and your psyche, your mental health, and yeah,
Absolutely.
we'll go more into depth.
I honestly do believe that anytime you do, especially a curse, that takes a lot of energy out of you, and
it calls in a different type of energy that doesn't normally exist within
right.
us.
And you go to a place where you wouldn't normally go to, energetically or emotionally, and it can take its toll on you. So that's why I'm always really, really careful, and I really, really think about before I do a curse, because I always think, am I willing to pay the price? If I'm in the wrong, am I willing to pay the price? Because there's always a price.
Exactly.
So
yeah, next episode we'll talk about have you been hexed or cursed or jinxed, and how to remove it, and side effects of doing these kinds of workings. So see you next time. And this has been Wicked Grace.